Man rush for Sellers. Lofting one wide open. Nick Harbor. Touchdown Carolina. Touchdown Nick Harbor. 26 yards out. Let the big guy eat. The 6'5", 235-pound sophomore was wide open. I think it was the move, Tommy, and not the speed. He just acted like he was going inside on the slant, went for the fade. In Sellers with great touch.
Welcome back in. It is the X Point Gamecock Central Takeover. We are live out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Tyler West and Chris along with you. That was the call on Saturday there with Todd Ellis of the first touchdown of the game. Lenore Sellers finding Nick Harbor in the end zone to give South Carolina an early lead. And, of course, they would go on to win the game 34-30. And what was the best overall performance as far as numbers go for Lenore Sellers so far this season? 21 of 30, 353 yards, 5 touchdowns to 5 different receivers, starting off with that first one to Nick Harbor there.
Yeah, guys, I think for this receiving core, this is, I think, maybe their best game this year just overall in terms of multiple guys making a contribution to the game. We were told coming in, hey, this is not the uber aggressive Missouri offense we saw, or defense under Blake Baker. And, you know, I thought that might mean, or I thought that meant we were going to see a lot of zone coverage, and maybe it just meant we were going to see more zone coverage than we did in previous years. They still played quite a bit of man coverage. If you watched on the outside, they were really forcing South Carolina's receivers to try and show they could get separation. And, you know, I don't think Carolina wins this game without getting those contributions from all those guys. You look at Harbor, who had a couple of big catches, but also drew a couple of big penalties. You look at Gage Larvadan had a nice reception for a first down. I think Jared Brown has started to look as maybe comfortable and just as healthy as he has since the beginning of the year. Maybe you're seeing him. He's got another year that he could come back. So maybe you're seeing him build some momentum into the offseason to maybe catapult him into next year if you kind of start to look ahead with this receiving core. And then as we talked about in the open, Delvon Campbell, obviously, I mean, 2 huge catch and runs there. So I think this receiving core being able to run good routes, get open, the development we're seeing from those guys for Mike Fury should be commended entirely. And some really good balls from Lenore Sellers on those, whether it is, I mean, you look the late throws, like there was some zip on these footballs. And you kind of, I guess, compare that to some of the earlier throws where he had great touch on some of the passes to Harbor, some of the passes to Josh Simon, of course, had good touch on the throw to Brady Hunt. This was a complete offensive team effort from South Carolina as far as their skill players go. And I'm just not sure they win this game without all those guys stepping up and making some plays.
And Jack, I think it was your article on Gamecock Central that put it perfectly, how a cast of familiar and unlikely heroes helped South Carolina with this win. And a lot of that did come in the receiving game where we talked about it on Saturday. When was the last time we saw Delvon Campbell make a catch? I think it was the Akron game where he caught a touchdown and ran into the fence after he scored there. Like, just a lot of guys we haven't seen or heard a lot of lately stepping up when they needed to on Saturday.
No, you're definitely right. And one interesting thing Shane Beamer did say yesterday during his teleconference was, and I feel like it's kind of a given since he always talks about it and we kind of know it, you know, practice matters, right? And, you know, he said, to paraphrase here, Delvon, you know, had a good week of practice compared to some of the other weeks, and that's why you saw him out there making an impact. And when he came in there and played and made those 2 catches, it kind of was just like, where'd he come from? Like, it kind of just felt like he came straight out of the locker room and just onto the field and made those plays. And look, those were giant catches that he made in the game for 47 and 39 yards. And then you also have Brady Hunt, who made the 1 catch on Sellers' Houdini, getting out of the sack on 3rd down and extending the drive. And then Delvon has that big catch. And then Michael Smith, another guy that we hadn't seen a whole lot of, with Josh Simon really being the spotlight tight end, makes he catches his first career touchdown at the college level. So it was that type of game where you had the unsung heroes make the big plays. Obviously, Sellers was a massive part of that. And then when you needed it most at the end of the game, when you needed another go-ahead touchdown drive, Rocket Sanders was that familiar hero that came through and just bulldozed over 4 defenders.
Yeah, I mean, Delvon guys came into this game, and it's not like he hasn't played at all. I mean, he's played some snaps, and there have been games where he's played a good many snaps. Early in the season, you would look at it and you would say, hey, this guy in this receiving core is playing a lot. South Carolina needs to get more out of somebody, right? Just collectively as a group, they needed to be able to get more out of that group. They needed to be able to help Lenore Sellers out. This is why we always say that you have to let guys progress. I mean, football is a developmental game. That's not just in the offseason. You see players progress throughout the season. We have seen it with Lenore Sellers. You may be saying, well, I mean, Chris, Delvon Campbell's in his 6th year playing college football, and that's true. But he's adjusting from playing in Nevada to going to the SEC, playing at South Carolina, playing in a new offensive scheme. West just went over Jared Brown. Nick Harbor, we have talked ad nauseum probably about the need for him to just continue to develop. The past couple weeks in year 2, he looks the most comfortable that I think he's looked so far in a Gamecock uniform. He's looked much more natural. We've seen him, on a variety of routes. Yeah, everybody loves the go ball that we saw a couple times against Missouri. That's everybody's dream scenario, right? Nick Harbor on a deep route. But you look back to Vandy, he's out there, running an out route, making a couple guys miss, running through somebody, making a big catch over the middle for a first down against Vandy. That's his progression as a receiver. And I think whether it's his route running, his hands, just how comfortable he looks, he's looked, the most comfortable he's looked. But Campbell came up big. I mean, late in the game, Beamer mentioned it on Saturday, they were down at one point 3 tight ends. On Campbell's first catch, they've got Brady Hunt out there, and he plays a good bit. But they had I think 3 receiver set at that time. Campbell's out there showing trust in him. And he came up big in that situation, both situations.
Yeah, and Campbell's a talented player. Like he came in. This is one of the guys we're talking about, and y'all remember all the conversations. Hey, there's 6, 7, 8 guys at receiver. They all have a chance. We just don't know who's going to emerge. And I gotta think if you come in as a grad transfer and you got 1 year, you're wanting to have a big year. And so that stuff Jack is talking about, like I don't want to completely speculate, but I gotta imagine when you're not playing, maybe there is a little lull in kind of your practice energy and just kind of your performance and just staying locked in. And he certainly turned that around, got on the field this past week, got opportunities and took advantage. We saw him make a big play that was wiped out against LSU with late in that game too. So I think there is definitely ability in this receiving core. We're starting to see it all kind of come together. And Harbor, man, how for as much as there is this talk, and rightfully so, of like hey, he is a track guy, and track is where he's going to make his career or whatever. How wholesome was it that he brought the game ball into the press conference? Like such a cool moment for that kid. Obviously, it meant a ton to him, and he clearly cares. Like you're talking about last week, he's out there trying to like run straight through tacklers on the outside and be physical. And guys, there was a brief split second. I sat in the end zone again on the kickoff return reverse. He started to get to top speed. And there is a brief second where it kind of opened. You could see it might open up. I thought for a split second we were about to see the track star run to the finish line. And I don't know if Williams-Brice Stadium support could have held up if South Carolina would have won the game on a Nick Harbor reverse kickoff return touchdown. Even then, it didn't end up as flashy as my brain thought it might be for one split second, but that set them up to really just feel like they weren't kind of backed up, in their own end zone in that huge drive at the end of the game.
And as a reaction Monday, we're live at Firehouse Subs out here in Newberry. Come by and see us. Store opens up in just about an hour. Tyler West and Chris be going until noon. We'll dive into the defense and get some of your thoughts on the Firehouse Subs text line and the Left Chevrolet phone line coming up next here on your Monday on the Game.
Hey, want to tell you about our show sponsor, Pete Alewine Pool and Spa. They're an award-winning swimming pool builder that's been in the business for 25 years with more than 40 years of pool construction experience. They service the entire Midlands area, whether you're looking for weekly cleaning maintenance or chlorine to salt conversion, with services like safety cover installs and safety vents installs. You can check out all their offerings at the showroom in Lexington, South Carolina, and you can also talk to their experts about any and everything you might need while you're there. Their retail store is located at 5541 Sunset Boulevard out in Lexington. Again, that is 5541 Sunset Boulevard out in Lexington, South Carolina. And you can also check them out online at PeteAlewinepools.com. So, want to give Pete Alewine Pool and Spa a big shout out and thank you for being a sponsor of 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point Gamecock Central Takeover. We are live out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Tyler, West, and Chris going up until noon. Jack joining us back in the Herndon Chevrolet Studios this time for our Laying the Wood segment, brought to you by our friends over at Georgia Pacific. And I know it wasn't the best all-around performance from the defense on Saturday, but they made plays when they needed to. And two of the biggest plays of the entire game go to Judge Collier with pass deflections in the end zone. First one led to Missouri having to settle for a field goal, and the second one led to their missed field goal. So that's potentially 14 points that got taken off the board, 11 points that got taken off the board just with Judge Collier playing at good defense there in the end zone. And again, the rest of the defense, again, did make plays when they needed to as well.
Yeah, I think, guys, this game, in a lot of ways, came down to forcing some field goals early. And, as much as it felt like on the scoreboard that Carolina – like if you just glance at this game, you'd be like, well, Carolina kind of has owned the first half. Really, especially going back and watching it, you're like, not really. Like Carolina scored twice at the end of the half. They actually scored twice at the end of both halves of this game. And so that was obviously huge for them to both win the game at the end and to pull away at the end of the first half. But really, it was a lot of back and forth in terms of both offenses moving the ball. But Missouri had to settle for field goals. And this was kind of a weird game to follow in that you're going, all right, Missouri is settling for a lot of field goals. South Carolina is saying, we're not going to kick field goals. We're not going to punt. We're going to just try to stay on the field. And so you kind of have this wide range of, well, on some of those drives, Carolina stays on the field and scores touchdowns. But on some of those drives, Carolina gets stopped and gets nothing. Whereas Missouri is more playing like, hey, we're just going to get points on every drive, even on a 4th and 1 situation where I'm going, man, the way I've run the football, if I'm Missouri, I'm kind of feeling good about picking this thing up. So I thought it was very interesting, the difference in approaches for each coach. But also defense clearly did not have their normal game, but they hung in there. They did what they needed to do at the very end. And again, that's a low percent. Once you score with only, there's 15 seconds left, Missouri's probably not scoring on you. But to hang in there, make them kick some field goals, definitely impressive. Also, guys, just, hey, hats off to Missouri as well. You got to give them credit. They came into this game, did not look like a 14-point underdog. They got their outside zone going. That was my single biggest key to the game going in was, if you're Carolina, stop, blow up the outside zone. That was not the case. They got it going, and it really, for much of this game, neutralized Carolina's usual advantage up front.
And Jack, we talk so much about what this pass rush does on a week in, week out basis, and it wasn't the best performance statistically for them this entire season. But I look at what Sanders, Stewart, and Tonka did. All those guys getting a lot of pressure and eventually getting the quarterback towards the end of the game. But there was still that presence of the pass rush, even if the numbers don't quite reflect that.
I thought they were definitely disruptive in this game for sure. And look, some of the biggest sacks they eventually got in this game came in the biggest moments. I think back to the first half when Sellers had just turned the ball over. He just threw his first interception of the game, and Missouri was set up, I think, around the 30-yard line. And I mean, look, it was an early point in the game and South Carolina's ahead, but it felt like, oh man, this is the worst possible spot you wanted to be in, where you give Missouri a short field for a team that, obviously Brady Cook played, but I mean, how healthy was he really, and you don't want to give him and the weapons on this offense any advantage, kind of like as we saw in the second half. But you get the big sack from, I think it was TJ Sanders who came in for the big hit on Brady Cook there, and I was on 3rd down. It put them really back deep in field goal range, and Missouri's kicker had already made 2 field goals in that game, but I mean, this was a much longer field goal, and it was just short, and that was a huge stop there by the defense. It felt like a giant momentum swinger, and it was, because South Carolina's offense went down and scored to take a 21-6 lead into halftime. But obviously later in the game too, on the final, 2 plays of the game, I mean, you get the final sack and then Jalen Kilgore's interception. I mean, it was just massive. And of course, Kyle Kennard's the one who comes in for the sack. I mean, look, we're getting so close to the potential of him breaking the single season sack record at South Carolina. Obviously, a little bit of work to do, but look, it wasn't a 6-7 sack performance or anything like that, but they made enough plays when it mattered most, and that's part of why they came away with this victory.
Yeah, the thing that I go back to is how the defense just came up big in those situations, right? Whether it's after that turnover, you're sitting there going, this is how South Carolina loses the game, right? That's early in the game. South Carolina did a good job the rest of the game with ball security, obviously. And then they didn't get a turnover until that game sealer. So it was kind of like they actually lost the turnover battle. You knew they couldn't come in with the way Missouri was going to play and lose the turnover margin by say more than one. That was going to make it really, really difficult to win. But the defense again in the red zone, really they were able to do, I think, a couple different things. They were able to prevent the huge plays from Burden and Weiss. I know Burden made the big one on the 4th and 4, 4th and 5, but you were able to prevent for most of the game those guys from making a yards after the catch big touchdown, right? I think those guys, the Weiss Burden duo, they had 14 catches in the game, but they didn't have the big one. That South Carolina was able to prevent a couple of those big plays. The next thing they did was made Missouri earn it. And while that wasn't pretty because they're sitting there running outside zone and kind of gashing you, especially in the second half, Carolina was able to play really outstanding red zone defense for most of the game. Again, third down, first half, you're 0 for 6, 3 of them in the red zone. So you're forcing, you get a missed field goal and 2 field goals instead of 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns in a field goal. That ends up playing a huge role in the game. So look, it's worth talking about what went wrong defensively against Missouri. I think part of it was just, like you said earlier, Wes, you credit Missouri. It's not like that, oh, man, they're running outside zone. Didn't think they would do that. Like, you knew that was coming. I think Missouri executed it well. South Carolina didn't have their best performance against it, but the defense stepped up big when you needed them to, and I think that ended up playing a huge role in the game.
We'll get to some of your thoughts on Love Chevrolet phone lines, Firehouse Ups text line to wrap up hour number 1 of the X Point and Gamecock Central Takeover live at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Again, story picking up shortly. Come by and see us. Tyler Woods and Chris going until noon on Your Reaction Monday here on The Game. Tyler Head, once again, telling you about our friends over at Twin Peaks right down the street from us in the Vista. It is obviously a busy time all year round, but especially in the month of November. And coming up next week, they have their Black Friday costume party going on all week long, starting next Monday, November the 25th, running through the end of the week, where you can try some epic handcrafted cocktails like a Wild Turkey 101 Stone Sour, a Hennessy Spicy Mango Lemonade, or a Traveler Gold Rush. And then on Black Friday, you can beat the Black Friday crowds with a big-time AFC West matchup at 3 o'clock with the Chiefs taking on the Raiders. Of course, they have TVs as far as the eye can see. Amazing, amazing food. And, of course, those 29-degree draft beers as well. There is never a bad time to be at Twin Peaks, but especially during the football season when there's so much going on. Again, head down to our friends with Twin Peaks down in the Vista.
Josh Simon comes in motion now, second down and 10. Blitz again, screenplay, left side, got it, over on the left side. Is Delvon Campbell at the 20, 15, 10, are you kidding me? Touchdown, Carolina, touchdown, Jared Brown, the redshirt junior from Lilburn, Georgia. His first touchdown of the year, it's good from 38 yards out.
Hey, welcome back in. It is Reaction Monday here on the Extra Point and Gamecock Central Takeover live out at Firehouse Subs here in Newberry. Tyler West and Chris going up until noon combined. CS stores opening up in just about an hour. With Reaction Monday, I always want to get your thoughts as well. Let's go out to Love Chevrolet phone lines. Mike wants to weigh in on what he saw on Saturday. Mike, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Hey, yeah, I just want to say with a minute something to go, I was thinking if we get a field goal and put this in overtime, I thought that'd be great. But Sellers put his cape on, took it down the field. Rocket was awesome. Watched that play plenty of times. That was electric. My dogs went hiding after that happened. I just want to give Sellers, Rocket, Campbell, and Harbor all the game ball MVPs.
Okay.
Go Gamecocks.
Yeah, absolutely. And appreciate the call there, Mike, 803-404-6100. And Jack, I think you kind of share sentiment of a lot of people that, you know, again, kind of watching those last couple of minutes play out. I think there was a lot of worry for people after Luther Burden scored that touchdown that, oh boy, here we go again. Here comes that SCPTSD that people like to talk about so much. But give credit to Lenora Sellers for staying composed and helping lead the team down the field and giving people a moment that I think we're going to be talking about for a very long time to come.
We will, man. This entire season has just felt like one giant roller coaster it's like being blindfolded on a roller coaster and having no idea what to expect. And that is exactly what this season's felt like. And that game on Saturday, look, I probably took years off a lot of people's lives, and the gray hairs are probably kicking in. But you know what? It's games like this that you're always going to remember. And you have a quarterback who can go out here and do things that are special. Like, he's breaking out of sacks that are just, it seems like it's impossible. And then he makes all the right throws. I know he's had the interception and stuff and the 4th down throw that sailed out of bounds. But otherwise, man, Lenora Sellers, 5 touchdowns, 350 yards. The progress he's made from week 1 to now, it's astonishing.
Yeah, and I think, guys, the demeanor of Lenoris, like, it's insane. Like, body language matters. And this guy, to be as unassuming as he is off the field and to be as even keel, but if you go back and watch that final drive, there was no panic. There were no, sometimes, and maybe you read too much into it, but sometimes you watch a guy and you're just like, ooh, the body language is not great here. If anything, so there's a rare trait, I feel like. Most people feel the pressure. Some people go to a different place when they have that pressure. And Lenoris has the feel of a guy who, when he is challenged, he goes to a different place. He goes to a greater place when he is challenged. And I felt like, as normally unassuming as he is, you could tell even before the final drive, like there were a couple of times where you saw his hands up. You saw his hands go up at a referee once on the spot. Like, his competitive juices were not only flowing, but I think they went to a different notch. And even his passes, I thought, had a little extra zip on them. Like, some of those balls on the last 2 drives were absolute lasers. And I remember going back, as much as the talk has been about Lenoris as a runner and the dynamic ability to make people miss. Chris, when we first heard about Lenoris Sellers as like a sophomore, when he was going to camps in Columbia, the talk was, look how strong this dude's arm is. Mm-hmm. And, I thought we saw that in those final drives and just threw laser after laser. And, but man, to have a guy who has the it factor, and, I go back even to something Nick Saban was talking about on College Game Day on Saturday. Different context, but he was saying, look, if you can win a bunch of games, you can even maybe make a playoff with a great defense. If you are going to go win a championship, you're going to win the college football playoff, you have to have brilliant quarterback play. And I think the same goes for a game like this. You can win a bunch of games where that look sort of like the Oklahoma game looked for Carolina, the Vanderbilt game looked for Carolina, where your defense just controls everything. But if you're going to have a special season, if you're going to win a game where you're down in the 4th quarter, you better have brilliant quarterback play, and you better have a guy where everybody looks around and has complete trust in their guy. And I mean, I really hate this kind of thing where everybody these days says, "Oh, that guy, him," like that's become a trend that's just been, it's completely overused. But Lenoris Sellers is him, and we saw the example of that as a redshirt freshman, taking his team to 4th quarter potential game-winning drives within the same game against an SEC opponent. Can't say enough about him.
And Jack, we talked about this a lot over the course of these past couple of weeks, where Lenoris Sellers has shown you the ability throughout the season, making plays here and there, of how special he truly is. But what we've seen over the course of this 4-game winning streak now, this is who he is, and we should expect this each and every week going forward now.
No, you definitely should expect this going forward. And here's the thing, man. He is doing this just as a redshirt freshman, a 19-year-old kid. And look, the pressure is on him from the jump. I mean, he's the local guy, like, as you guys know, and stuff. And like, he's just making big plays in big moments. And look, there were a lot of people wondering, is this guy really the answer after the turnovers he had in crucial moments against Alabama a few weeks ago? And look, people are going to look back at the Alabama and LSU game and think that South Carolina should have won those games for the penalties being what they were, and then obviously the turnovers and other miscues in that Alabama game. But you know what? Ever since then, Lenoris has really stepped it up. He looks so much more poised in the pocket. It's week one against ODU. He's taking off and running at every moment that he could. And now it's like, he's staying back. He's looking a lot more poised in the pocket, like I said, and he's making the right throws and he's running when he needs to. Just the decision making, the vision he has in the field, it's just a night and day difference from August till now.
Well, and again, it's keeping those eyes down the field, never giving up on a play, and obviously that athleticism taking over. When, again, give credit to Johnny Walker because he basically had him dead to rights on that throw to Brady Hunt, and I still don't know how he eluded it because he got him up by the shoulder pads. But Lenore Sellers and that athleticism is going to take this team a long way, and not just for what they're going to be able to do through the remainder of this season, where they still have a shot at getting to 10 wins, but what he's going to be coming up next year after having another full off season to continue to develop. And who knows what is the limit for Lenore Sellers here.
Well, and hey, let's not forget, Sellers didn't even get to play in the second half against LSU. So how different is that game if he is? And I think you said it, though, Tyler. You tackle this kid high, his center of gravity, like his balance is so strong, his lower body strength is so long. You go high, you're not getting this guy down.
1 hour in the books, 2 more hours to go, live out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Tyler Chris going up until noon. Come out and see us here in Reaction Monday on the game.
Sanders is in to the left of Sellers. They'll fake it to him. Dump play over the middle. Touchdown, Carolina. Touchdown, Josh Simon, his 6th on the year. What a gorgeous play from Carolina.
All right, guys, welcome back in. We are live, Firehouse Subs, here in beautiful Newberry, South Carolina. Beautiful day outside. The Chris is
It's wafting.
Chris is wafting the smells of Firehouse. Shout out to our guy, Larry Chandler. Not here with us today. We miss you, Larry. Appreciate you as always. Coming out and see us if you are remotely in the area and come talk some ball on this Reaction Monday, which comes a day after Confession Sunday, which I want to hear about. Where were you at when you saw the moment? Did you cut the game off? Did you leave the stadium, or did you hang in there for the big moment?
Let's get to some of these reactions because we've had a lot of them weighed in over the course of the past hour. I can run through some of them here. MW says, when Mizzou scored, I poured a fresh IPA in misery. When Rocket scored, I jumped, and all 4 of us friends smelled like Voodoo Ranger afterwards.
There you go. Good one.
Nice.
Good one.
Was there after the touchdown. I was in tears. That's Ricky from Aiken. I was at the game. Didn't actually see Rocky get in the end zone. Saw him get near the goal line. And the next thing I know, I was in the middle of a dog pile of fans 5 rows up in the upper deck. And then, Trey says, oh, buddy, I absolutely stayed. So a little bit of a mixed, different amount of reactions there. But it didn't seem like, at least from watching it in person as well, it didn't really seem like people were heading for the exits even after Burton scored that touchdown.
Yeah, like I said, we just had a few people who had to get it off their chest on Sunday, which I do respect admitting it. And I think, you know what, guys, this is why, like, if you're a baseball fan, this is why you sit through 95 times of your team not getting the big hit in the 9th inning. This is why you go through all the pain, all the just dejection of losing a game. And I got to thinking, maybe we were all just ignorant to think it was going to be just that easy, just that simple for South Carolina to sort of, we've talked about them exorcising demons all year long and getting over the hump in certain situations. Missouri, as we know, like, they have owned this series the last 3 years, the last 5 years, going back beyond Shane Beamer, but became the coach, and they were not going to go away. And Carolina did get the lead going into the half. They had maybe an opportunity to extend it. Once that didn't happen, you just kind of knew sitting there, you were like, this. I mean, Drinkowitz. Let me just give the dude credit, because he is probably this is the most annoying team on the planet, I feel like. But like we said going in, these guys do not panic. And Eli's a heck of a play caller, man. Like, let's just call it for what it is. His system works. Great play caller, and he does not panic when his team is behind.
And one thing that he did really well is you got to give credit to Nate Noel as well, somebody that came into this game, had been banged up the past couple weeks with that foot injury. He was getting those outside runs, and they kept feeding him, kept going to him. They didn't try and change things up, didn't try and get cute with it, and they found that to be very effective throughout the game on Saturday.
Yeah, they were a different team with Brady Cook and a different team with Noel healthy or close to being healthy. And dude, Brady Cook, to be like, quote, banged up, I don't know, guys. He looked pretty freaking good to me. Like, he was out there moving around.
Go ahead.
He was delivering the football. Didn't look doubtful by any means to me, just saying. But they were a different offense with those two guys making plays for them.
Well, you could see once they started the game, I know Brady Cook's first couple of attempts there, relatively short, just kind of seeing how he felt and feeling it out. And then once they realized he was good to go, they started letting it go down the field a little bit more. And again, give him credit because he had a solid performance for the most part, considering the fact that he probably was not at 100%.
Yeah, and that's what they do too, though. We talked about it. Like, they are a lull you to sleep offense. And then when they have Drew Pine in there, that's kind of just all they are. Like, they can't really necessarily get the ball down the field. With Brady, they kind of they pick their spots very well, and they will lull you to sleep. They're going to hit outside zone, outside zone, outside zone. Then they're going to run plays off of that, whether it's play action or some inside zone, different looks off of that. Quick screen game to the outside is a big part of what they do, but then they will attack you downfield. I feel like when you least expect it, we saw them obviously hit the deep ball. That was a check at the line of scrimmage to Luther on 4th and 4. They did get a little cute on the 3rd and 1 where they threw the football down the field that ended up being an incomplete pass, and they were not willing to go for it on 4th and 1. That was the one time I thought, that kind of maybe backfired on them a little bit. But we've seen Eli Drinkowitz throughout his time at Missouri. It's almost like a pitcher who pitches backwards. They are willing to run the football at times on 3rd and long, and they're willing to throw the football down the field on 3rd or 4th and short. And they always kind of keep you off balance just a little bit. And, but yeah, I feel like Marcus Carroll maybe isn't quite as good of a fit for that outside zone as some of the other backs they have had. But the Noel kid, I mean, he was fantastic, honestly. He was hitting the hole quick. He was cutting the ball back against the grain, and he was a difference maker in this football game for them.
Yeah, he was. And I think just kind of watching this game play out, knowing how Missouri wanted to administer this game, thinking back to the 2022 Missouri-South Carolina game where they were very patient, just leaning on their defense. And looking at Missouri's record in close games, this year they have either had close wins or in their 2 losses to SEC teams, which are only 2 losses this year, they're blowouts. So if you're kind of looking at the formula, if you let Missouri play their game and hang around, they're probably going to win. Now, South Carolina broke that trend, as we all know, with a last-minute drive with 1 minute and something on the clock. But generally, this team, with the way they play, Missouri, if you get in that situation where you play to the type of game that they want to be in, it's typically not going to go well. And it almost did not for South Carolina, but for a great offensive drive by Sellers and the rest of the team. You looked at this game 21-6 at halftime and South Carolina getting the ball to open the second half. I'm sitting there going, South Carolina needs to go down, score a touchdown, and you might be able to put this game away, basically, right?
Yep.
Because now Missouri, they're down 28-6 with a few minutes off the clock in the 3rd quarter. Drinkwitz, as patient as he is, there has to be a limit to that. You're not going to be able to sit there and say, okay, we'll run outside zone and play defense down 28-6 in the second half. So South Carolina puts together a drive. You're sitting there going, all right, they might be able to put this thing away and have the type of game where it could end up being our score prediction, 31-13, 31-14, that type of thing. Instead, they stall out. They go for it on a 4th down, right? Would have been a long field goal. Go for it. Fine with going for it, but you don't get it. Then Missouri goes down and scores a touchdown. Now it's 21-12. And now you're playing into the type of game that they wanted.
Yeah, and let's steal an Eric Kimry phrase, inflection point. All these games like this have inflection points where, we've seen Carolina, even if you blow out a team, you can go back and look at a handful of plays and say, well, hey, if that play goes differently, maybe the game ends up being just a little bit tighter. And then if you're in a tight game, which is what we saw, it completely changes what you're allowed to do, to Chris's point. And, even after South Carolina scored what was originally thought to be the game-winning touchdown, there was no panic they're running the football.
Yep.
They are milking the clock.
Yep.
Despite being down. And you're just sitting there going, at least I was sitting there, I'm watching the clock, and I'm just watching Missouri methodically go down the field, and you're like, this may not be good for South Carolina here. So there was no panic there, but you look at those inflection points, like you go back to the Vandy game. There's some second half plays where Vandy goes for it on 4th down. They don't get it. Carolina gets the ball back, drives down, and score. If Vandy maybe picks up a couple of those, maybe you get yourself in a tight game there. And in that game, it played out to Carolina's favor. In this game, you really could sense that Beamer kind of felt that too, like, hey, this is an important start of the second half drive. We need a touchdown here, because then that's when you can turn those defensive ends loose. Missouri did such a good job of neutralizing your pass rush because the outside zone was hitting so well, and you had to be aware of that.
Let's get some more of your thoughts. Love Chevrolet phone line 803-404-6100. Marcette wants to weigh in on what happened on Saturday. Marcette, appreciate your call. What's on your mind today?
Well, hey guys, I hope you guys are feeling great. I can tell that you're all pumped up about our Gamecocks. I am an avid fan, a Gamecock alum, and I tell you, you asked the question, how did I feel? I knew when we were at 62 seconds, we still had hope. I felt like we could do this, that Lenore would do something, that we could get either tie the game or get a touchdown. That's what my family was saying. We were sitting in the family room watching the screen and like, okay, we got to either tie or we got to win. And when we saw Lenore get that ball to Rocket Panthers, oh my God, we erupted in our family room. And it was just amazing. I am just thrilled. And the last thing I'll say is I love to listen to the national SEC guys, and they are just talking about our Gamecocks and talking about the atmosphere at Williams-Brice. I'm so proud to be a South Carolina fan, and especially when I hear them saying positive things about our coach and about our atmosphere and about our players. We are on the right trend moving forward. That's all I got.
Hey, appreciate the call. 803-404-6100 is a Reaction Monday. Quick point there, as she brings up, she thought at least that they might have the opportunity to go down there and maybe tie with field goal. If Missouri does not convert the 2-point conversion to make it at that point a 3-point game, or at that point to make it a 3-point game, 30-27 ahead of South Carolina's last drive, do you think that changed the approach of how South Carolina attacks that last drive, knowing they would have only needed a field goal to win the game at that point instead of tying it, or do you think the last drive looks the same regardless?
Yeah, I think it has to change your thought process. And we already saw them even with the current situation where a field goal ties it for you. They took a measured approach to that. Now, I think it helps when you have timeouts. And
3, right? They had all 3.
Well, yeah, and by the time they got down there, they had 2.
Yep.
Because they burned 1 fairly early. And so you had 2 when you got down there kind of towards the red zone area. And so to me, like they took an approach of we want to score a touchdown here, but you can't risk scoring a touchdown, or you can't risk just blowing your opportunity by getting too aggressive. So I think they did a good job. Again, as great as Sellers played, you're still going, all right, this is a young quarterback. We got to make sure he manages the situation well. And he absolutely did. There was a little bit around me of kind of on the QB draw on first down that got 6 or 7 yards. But I actually, partially because it did work, I actually loved that call because you did have a timeout. What you did was you slowed down the pass rush a little bit and made Missouri think, okay, they are still willing to go QB run here. And you got yourself in a position to where even if you were to drop back and throw on second down, even if you got sacked, you were still in very good field goal range. At the before the quarterback draw, if you dropped back and got sacked, then you got more into long field goal range, which is something I feel like, especially getting down there so quickly and so early in the game clock, you did not want to put Herrera in a situation where he's having to kick another 45-plus yarder to tie the game. You want it to be from the angle he wanted, and you wanted for it to be as short as possible. So I actually love that call. And then you went back into your back pocket and you pulled out the trusty shovel pass that we saw South Carolina hit against Bama.
Yeah, they love to show the graphic of Herrera 0 for 2 on game-winning but it's like those were long field goals, right? It's not exactly fair for any kicker. But, Shane Beamer mentioned after the game, hey, we were fortunate to have those timeouts, and Dowell Loggins asked him on the headset, are you good if we pop a run in here? So that ended up being a really good play, to mix in there.
More reactions coming up. It is Reaction Monday live at Firehouse in Newberry. Ty West and Chris going until noon here on the game.
All right, guys, you already know it. It's our friends over at Goal Line Framing. We were out there live last week. They took great care of us just like they'll take great care of you and your custom framing job there at Gold Line Framing. Head on over right now, 511 12th Street, West Columbia, South Carolina, or just give them a call, 803-739-1337. Our friends at Gold Line want to help you get a gift, a Christmas gift for that person in your life that's very, very difficult to buy for. Go ahead, head on over there and get a gift card to where that person could go out and take their sign print, their poster, their jersey, whatever it is, and help take it to the next level by getting a custom framing job, again, from our friends over at Gold Line Framing. That's at 511 12th Street. Phone number 803-739-1337. Hit them up right now and go ahead and set up your custom framing job.
So they was up by 3, so I knew if we got to the red zone, like we had points. So once we got to the red zone, it's like, all right, just protect the ball at that point. But I mean, I wanted to score obviously, so we went down there. We felt good about it. We came do some like show pass early in the game too, but they overplayed it the first time we ran it. So it's like, hey, we can come back to it because they overplaying it. So once you came back to it, gave it a rocket and score.
Gamecock Central takeover of Firehouse subs here in Newberry. Ty West and Chris along with you on your reaction Monday. That was Lenore Sellers taking us through that final drive where, again, he showed great composure and ended up leading to his 5th touchdown to a 5th different receiver on the game. With the debate's been going on this morning. So Todd called it a shuffle pass, but we often refer to it as a shovel pass, which it was an overhand throw. So does that qualify as a shuffle pass, technically speaking, not a shovel? Because shovel is supposed to be underhanded. So is a shuffle pass? Is that how we should officially refer to that touchdown?
No, I mean, to me, I'll just say what I think it's always a shovel. I don't think anybody. The only time you see the underhand, I don't want to say the only time. Most of the time when you see the underhand now, it's on a jet sweep pop pass.
Yeah.
Most of the time when you see the shovel,
It was this,
it's
right?
the flip.
Yeah, it was. He flipped it, and
But Tyler's saying,
and Todd referred to it as a shuffle pass on the call.
I think when you,
I feel like those two are used interchangeably.
They are.
They are.
There.
But
Just like
technically speaking, a shovel would be underhand.
no, a shovel pass is that,
No.
right?
But that's not the motion of a shovel, though. The shovel is coming
that-
up underneath, which
But
is where the name comes from,
Is that where it comes from?
as far as I know.
then what would you call technically?
Technically, I would call that a shuffle pass. But like you said, it's interchangeable.
like shuffleboard.
I guess so. I don't know where that one would come from, but we use it interchangeably. So, like, you're not wrong for referring to it either way. But the Bill and Preston were talking about this morning, the debate on what that should actually be called. Either way, it's called a touchdown, which is all that matters at the end of the day.
I was going to say what it actually is was a brilliant play call in the situation.
I got another one for y'all.
Okay.
That and I don't know what is the actual correct term because it has become used interchangeably as well in football, and it's even fitting that we're sitting in a Firehouse Subs. Chris, look up here.
Okay.
Top sub under hot specialty subs on the left.
Ah, yes.
What's it say?
Hook and ladder,
So,
which is a good sub, by the way.
Yeah.
do y'all call it a hook and ladder or a hook and lateral?
I call it the
Because-
hook and ladder, but
Because people call it the hook and ladder, but it is literally a hook and then a lateral. So
Right.
I've heard it called both.
I don't think I've ever heard it called a hook and ladder roll.
really,
I mean,
You haven't?
I get technically speaking, that makes more sense, but I've always heard it referred to as a hook and ladder.
But it was
I've
but
heard of
it
the
is-
lateral.
But it
was
is a series of laterals.
named a hook and ladder
Right.
because it's originally a hook and lateral, and
Yeah.
coaches like to have plays on
Yeah.
words, basically.
I've always heard hook and ladder. Get more of your reactions on Love Chevrolet phone line 803-404-6100. A
You've
guy
heard hook and
Casey
lateral,
in
right?
Gilbert.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been hanging
All
on
right.
line for a few minutes. Casey, appreciate your patience. What's on your mind today?
Well, it was football, but now I want a hook and ladder. Crazy.
That's why we're here.
Come on to Newberry.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a drive. But, it was a great game. Y'all were right about one thing. I'm used to losing those games, but I'm an avid fan that fights through those emotions and keeps my eyes glued. So, there was a baby that is traumatized from my screams and yells at the TV, I promise. It was a great game. I think that we're playoff material. I'd love to be the 9-3 Cinderella team that makes it and actually makes a run for it. But even if we don't, this has been one successful year, a trend where we're going up, and I couldn't be more excited as a Carolina fan for the upcoming Clemson game because my father is petrified, and I hope him pray for Detroit. Thanks, fellas.
Appreciate the call as always, Casey. Again, 803-404-6100. And look, we got 2 weeks to build up to this Clemson game. I caught the last few minutes of their game against Pittsburgh right before Carolina kicked off. And I just say one thing, and credit to Kate Klubnik for the great touchdown run there that helped them win that game. Their offensive line versus South Carolina's defensive front, there's no reason South Carolina's defensive front should not be able to wreak havoc on that O-line and get after Kate Klubnik the entire game because Pittsburgh was getting home that entire game.
Yeah, and Pitt has been a good defensive
They
team
have.
this year. And, yeah, like you said, Tyler, plenty of time to unpack that one. Both of those teams still have a game each before.
Against two opponents that played each other this past weekend, by the way, in Wofford and Citadel.
There you go. And Citadel won.
One better
There you go. So, we'll analyze the transition property. Not really. But by the way, that Pitt game, first time I've ever seen a football team, I was going to say college, but any level, have back-to-back-to-back penalties twice in a game. Not just – you don't see back-to-back-to-back penalties a lot. They did it – Pitt did it 2 different times in that game. They had 3 straight false starts one time. 3 straight offsides. I think it was 3 straight offsides and then 3 straight false starts.
Okay.
I've never seen that before.
How do you jump off? They jumped offsides on defense
3 straight times.
3 straight times.
3 straight times. I assure you.
How did you, as a coach, not pull the entire front four at that point?
How many miles are they running in practice today?
They'd be running on the sideline. Like what? I now, by the way, kudos. Let's turn this back. Kudos, South Carolina fans. Y'all got to stop on this drive.
Yes.
Y'all forced to stop by forcing 2 straight procedural issues for Mizzou on Saturday. When South Carolina did not force many punts in this game. So one of those punts did come after the crowd was very much into the game and forced a couple of false starts.
For sure. Let's get back out to the Love Chevrolet phone lines. Gamecock Larry, as always, wanting to lay in. Gamecock Larry, I know you had to have been over the moon on Saturday watching this game happen. What's on your mind this morning?
Well, I'll tell you what, call it a shovel pass, hook and ladder, anything you want to. Well, all I got to say is, Rocket was going to get it. He said, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to score. And he did. And let me tell you, that old Burden dancing in the sidelines after he made that touchdown catch. But boy, it sure made me feel good. I felt that way in a long time when Sanders crossed that goal line. And it was, oh, you ought to seen that. Well, I know you did. Seen that look on that Missouri sideline. I can't talk too much because I'm getting old and I run out of energy. But I'm gonna listen to you. But all I got to say is I love y'all. And one coach down. And Dabo, look out. We coming for you, Dabo. Dabo, you next. Go Gamecocks. Love all y'all.
Appreciate it as always, Gamecock Larry's. He's got Dabos in his sights coming up a little
Love you too, Gamecock.
over a week and a half from now. And again, plenty of time to get to that matchup. Coming up next, though, want to check how we did on Friday's buy or sell, because one of us has said earlier, did really well. One of us did okay, and one of us not so much. I'll let you know who that is coming up in just a moment. Reminder this weekend as well, Wofford, the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest rolls over once again, $1,100 up for grabs. If Carolina can get a special team score against the Terriers, go online to 1075thegame.com and register if you've not already for the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest. It is the Extra Point and Gamecock Central takeover at Firehouse Sub. Store is literally open. Come by and see us. Going up until noon. Tyler West and Chris, and your reaction Monday here on the game.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what we're doing this year is a reason why a lot of guys came back. We knew what we could have. We knew what this team could be, and so we kind of just trusted each other, trusted the coaches, trusted the game plans, everything, and we just bought in. And I had never beaten Missouri before tonight, so it's just little moments like this. You kind of just I wanted to knock that, put a check on that box, and so just some of these accomplishments that we're doing, I'm just grateful, blessed, all of the above.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover live out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Tyler, West, and Chris going until noon. That was Boogie Huntley talking after the game about one of the big reasons why a lot of these guys wanted to come back was to do things like they did on Saturday by finally getting a victory over Missouri, first time in the Beamer era, first time Eli Drinkwitz has also ever lost to South Carolina. So I can't think of a better candidate for who sprung a leak brought to you by our friends over at American League Protection than Missouri for finally losing to South Carolina for the first time since 2019. I want to go back to Friday, as we do our buy and sell every Friday at 11:30. I kept tabs this weekend on how exactly we performed in this regard, and I want to give a shout out to Wes, who did the best out of all of us when it came to buy or sell on Friday. I want to kind of run through these individually.
I had no idea where I was going to land.
Yeah, me neither. You did the best. Our first buy or sell was that South Carolina in this losing streak had not eclipsed more than 69 rushing yards against Missouri. The question was, will South Carolina have more than 2 rushers go over that mark? Wes sold on it. Chris, you and I both bought on it. The correct answer was sell. Rocket Sanders led the way with 53 yards on the ground.
Yeah, that's crazy. They didn't get. Now, let me say, I'm not like defending myself. Got it totally wrong.
Sounds kind of like you are.
I'm not, but like it just made me think of a key stat for South Carolina. 69 yards was the high watermark for rushing total the past 3 years in the streak under Shane Beamer. South Carolina did get over 100 yards as a team.
Yes, they did.
Which,
barely, but
barely.
Yeah.
Now, you're not looking at that, patting yourself on the back. Man, we really, especially with the past 2 weeks, how South Carolina's run the football, I think you probably expected more there. I expected more there. But that is a better number, right? You weren't 30s, 50s, 69. Like, you got over 100 yards. It wasn't great, but you did enough.
Did y'all see the Beamer where he's just looking at the stats post game? Of course, vibes are good. He goes, yeah, rushed us again. Just like seeing it.
And then TJ Sanders, when he saw how much Nate Noella ran for, he was like, "Poof, $150." Jeez.
Yeah. I saw an interview with Nate. It was a very bizarre interview, by the way. This, I guess it was like a local news station in Missouri interviewed Nate Noel after the game. And if you watch the interview and listen to it, it's almost like they won because he was like their player of the game. I guess they have to do it or something.
Okay.
It's like a sponsor.
Like maybe like a sponsor thing. Like they interviewed him and like he's talking about, I'm proud of the like you're listening to it and you're like, they won the game.
If you didn't know the context, you thought they would have won.
But he was he seems like a good kid. App State transfer, right?
Yep.
Seems like a good kid, great attitude. Like had a really good performance.
Sure.
So credit to them.
So let me ask you real quick a stupid question.
Yep.
I'm not a stat guy. That's the best total against Carolina this year, right? Has to be.
I believe so.
Who else would it have been?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't think of anybody off the top of my head. I believe that's correct.
Like, am I forgetting somebody obvious? I don't think I am.
Yeah, I don't think so. So again, Wes got that buy or sell right. The second one I asked was Carolina was only allowing quarterbacks to complete 55% of their passes. Now, I did this with the anticipation that Drew Pine was going to start because he was only completing 6% of his passes. Could Carolina hold him under 50? You two both sold on that. I bought on that. Correct answer was sell. So both you guys got that one right. As Brady Cook completed 67% of his passes.
I thought this is the one where you said it had to be Drew Pine, though.
I didn't say it had to be. I was anticipating it was going to
I think you did. But we're trying to help you, actually.
Yeah.
You said it was off the board.
You know what? I'll take the deal. That's
okay. I want bonus points in that. I believe I responded to you and said, Tyler, Brady Cook may play in this game. And you looked at me like I was wrong.
Fair point. Third buy or sell, would this be a one-score game sometime in the fourth quarter? We all sold on that. Correct answer was buy, of course.
Dang. We dumb.
Well, we had a lot of faith in this team. And, we were criticized for having enough faith to think they were going to win this game by multiple scores. Based on everything we'd seen coming in.
We would have been criticized if we said it was going to be a one-point game.
That's the thing is, in the weeks leading up to it, we're being criticized for being too negative. Then suddenly we're too positive. We're being criticized for that, too. We can't win.
there's no consensus in a fan base.
There's
ever,
not.
you know,
There's
except for everybody's happy about this win.
Yeah, if
It's a
you
big
got a
one.
problem with this win, whew, just turn in the fan card now. I feel like
I was gonna say I've not seen anybody express too much of a frustration with this one. I'll say that much.
where does this one rank for y'all on the best games you've ever seen in person?
Mm.
Like, I mean, so many fourth quarter turns,
Yeah,
twists, big
again,
plays.
You guys have a longer track record of this than I do, but
Calling us old.
I mean, no, you've been covering this program for a lot longer than I have. But I mean, it jumps up to number one for me.
But you said it's the best atmosphere you've
Best
seen
atmosphere
so far.
I'd ever seen. Which again, the LSU game was great atmosphere. Didn't go the way you wanted to. A&M a couple weeks ago, great atmosphere. But just like I don't know, the panic of seeing Missouri score the touchdown and then the immediate jubilation seconds later with the game-winning score. I don't know. That put it over the top for me.
Yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, I think I said this earlier, and there's probably one or two examples out there, but the emotional swing of 4th and 5. Oh man, the other team made a one-handed touchdown catch on 4th and 5 to go ahead. Oh crap, you've only got a minute-ish left in the game. This doesn't look good. Oh man, we're about to lose 6 straight to Eli Drinkwitz. Not all of them were hit, but we're about to lose 6 straight to Eli Drinkwitz. Oh man, we're going to blow a 21-6 lead again. Shane Beamer mentioned after the game, like I had the same thought sitting in the stadium. LSU, right? Go up 17-0 against LSU, end up losing. He's like, I'm gonna admit it went through my head. Hopefully, it didn't go through our players' head. Clearly, it didn't affect them too much. But just that emotional swing, like there have been games that are down to the wire, like that, but maybe not quite in the same way. I mean, I think about the 2014 Georgia game. You remember the measurement? Carolina has to go for it on the 4th down. Otherwise, Georgia's going to get the football
Tyler
back.
remembers that game.
Tyler remembers it.
I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. You've got other games that are thrilling, like, I don't know, 2012 Georgia, South Carolina. I'm going to keep throwing Georgia games at Tyler.
Keep throwing me under the bus here, aren't you?
You think about it, seriously, there have been so many crazy Georgia games. The one on the road with the Melvin Ingram fake punt.
Mm-hmm.
That ended up
Yep.
being a crazier game in the fourth quarter than we thought. But this one, with what it meant, how it went.
Missouri 2013 when Connor Shaw game.
Yes.
Yep. Missouri in the monsoon game where Carolina has to hit a field goal late. I mean, there's been game, but this one,
it's a little different.
So something about even though your playoff chances are low, the added context, the added pressure, the added just what it would mean to you to win the game or lose the game.
Sure.
This to me felt like this would have been fair or not. This would have been framed up as another classic South Carolina letdown.
Yeah.
Like you were a 2-touchdown favorite right around there. You feel like you have an opportunity, 1, to end a streak against the program that has beaten you. 2, to continue a march towards at least being in the conversation, right? Against a team we all said you should beat coming in. And, Missouri was game, like give them credit. They were game for this matchup. But you stared into the abyss and you did not blink if you're South Carolina. I think that says something. How many Gamecock teams, how many just teams in general in that position down at the end with just over a minute left would have panicked and lost the game. That was rare what we saw on Saturday. And at some point, you just got to, if you're a fan, listen, you just got to sit back and enjoy it and just bask in an incredible moment.
Got a text on the personal Firehouse Subs text line from my friend Ken, longtime Gamecock fan, actually celebrating his 52nd anniversary of his first ever Gamecock football game. First Gamecock football game was in November 18th today, 1972.
Okay.
South Carolina played. He was 8 years old. South Carolina played FSU. He said that Missouri game on Saturday was top 5 for him. So he's seen a lot of Gamecock football games.
That's pretty good
in 52 years. Pretty crazy.
2 more buyer sales that we had on Saturday, on Friday. The past 3 games, no wide receiver led them in receiving yards. It was Josh Simon for 2 games, then Rocket Sanders last weekend against Vanderbilt. The buyer sale was, will it happen again? Wes and I bought on that. Chris sold on that, so both got that right. Wes and I bought on that. Chris sold on that. Chris got that right because Devon Campbell led the way with 86 yards on Saturday.
Good for him.
And then final one, winning coach takes a shot at the other in the presser. I didn't hear anything from Coach Beamer. Did you have something?
Chris has
Do you have something?
I really think Coach would get mad if he heard this. So maybe
I'm just going to take my win. Chris is wrong.
Extremely, it would be the subtlest of subtle. But, you know, Beamer gave a lot of credit to Brady Cook after the game in Missouri. There wasn't even mention of Eli Drinkwitz. Just saying.
I'll allow it. How about that?
No, you don't have to allow it. I'm just saying.
We'll call it.
I think technically, nah.
Technically, no.
Nah.
All right. Well, the final tally is
It might have not even been
Wes 3 out of 5, Chris 2 out of 5, me 1 out of 5. That's how buy or sell went on Friday. So congratulations,
Good job, Wes.
For doing it better.
3 out of
than
5
us.
is really not anything to be.
Hey, it's better than the both of us put together, or tied for both of us put together.
True.
So we'll come back,
True.
wrap up hour number 2, get more of your thoughts on Love Chevrolet phone lines and Firehouse Subs text on 834-46100. A Reaction Monday here in the game.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that's the difference in the game. In the first half, we had the 4th down stop, and we had the turnover, and didn't get any points off the turnover with the missed field goal when 3 and out right there to the sack. Our inability to convert 3rd downs in the red zone in the first half was why we were behind, and ultimately the difference in the score. Any of those other touchdowns, it's a different game.
Welcome back in. It is the X Point and Gamecock Central takeover of Firehouse Subs out here in Newberry. Again, Tyler, West, and Chris going until noon. Store is open. Got some sandwiches out here. Smells great as always. Also trying out the Hot Sauce Bar, which has recently made its return. So come by and see us before we get out of here coming up at the 12 o'clock hour. That was Eli Drinkwitz after the game on Saturday, giving some of his reasons why his Missouri Tigers are not able to pick up another victory against South Carolina. One of the biggest factors being 1-9 on 3rd downs, as well as only converting on 3 of 5 red zone trips, being held to field goals on 3 of their 5 red zone trips, which again was a big key factor in a game that ended up coming down to 1 score on Saturday. And Coach Beamer, we joke about the trophies, the Bonham Trophy, the Mayor's Cup Trophy. He brought the Mayor's Cup to the press conference, or actually Hunter Beamer brought it into the press conference and put it down on the table. So that trophy does exist, and we have seen it. Now, if that goes into the janitor's closet afterwards, I don't know, but at least for the time being, they were parading the trophy around on Saturday.
Little fun from the Gamecock football social media team as well.
As always,
yeah. Missouri had their little, packing up the trophy, boxing it up. You have Beamer coming by doing an unboxing, just, casually taking it with him. So, yeah, that was awesome. I mean, you could tell that this one meant a lot. And Beamer, a lot of times coaches are going to pull the, hey, big win. We try not to overemphasize this game. And I don't think they overemphasized it in terms of preparation. But Beamer even said in the press conference on Saturday, this one meant a lot. I think it meant a lot to the team. It meant a lot to him. You have a bunch of guys in that locker room that have not won this series.
Yep.
They haven't won a game against Missouri since they've been at South Carolina. And you don't want to have that mark,
Sure.
And for Beamer, and that streak obviously predates Beamer being here, but he has not picked up a win against Missouri either. And so I think that was something that he wanted to cross off. Obviously, there's deeper meaning because you're now winning a 3rd straight game against a ranked opponent. You're now adding to a list of top 25 wins that has already, in the early going, surpassed some other big name coaches, around college football. So a lot of meaning to this one.
Let's get more of your thoughts. 803-404-6100. Thad from Mullins wants to weigh in. Thad, appreciate your patience. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, I just want to speak to the game. I was very disappointed in some of the way that we played on defense, but it was exhilarating to see the last drive of the game and how we won the game. It speaks volumes to how far we've come and how much we've grown over this year. But I want to run some quick numbers by you. If you look at our schedule and what we've played in the SEC, Kentucky at the time that we played them in the coaches poll was 29. LSU was 17. Ole Miss 11. Alabama 7. Oklahoma 26. Texas A&M 11. Vanderbilt 25. Missouri 21. I've heard Kirby Smart talk about how tough their schedule has been this year and how hard it is to play on the road. They have not, by any means, in my standard, played to the same competition that we have, because some of the other games that they've had has not been anything comparable to what we have faced this year. And the 3 losses that we had, we all, I think, can agree that the LSU was stolen from us, but I don't see why we do not have a chance to make it into the college playoffs. We beat Clemson in a considerable fashion, let's just say by 14 points. There's no way that they could keep us out. I'll take your comments off the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call there. And look, the percentage is not 0. I'll say that much. It's going to be interesting to see where the committee puts South Carolina tomorrow because, of course, they were 21st going into this game. You had a win against top 25 team. If you're, 17th or 18th with still another opportunity to play a ranked team coming up in 2 weeks, that possibility is always there with some chaos as well. So the chances aren't 0. I don't love Carolina's chances right now, but you still have an outside shot to make it in if things go your way.
The amount of parity in college football right now, too, lends itself to these crazy upset. I mean, we talked about BYU.
Yep.
BYU goes into the game a small favorite
Yep.
against a team that was what
3-6.
3-6,
Yep.
and BYU loses. So
Yep.
I think just keep winning, and let's see what happens. And I don't know. I will say Georgia has played a pretty
Georgia's
daggum
had a tough schedule.
Georgia's not the one I would pick
Yeah.
on in terms of their schedule.
Texas, you can
Yeah,
pick on.
yeah,
Texas,
Texas,
like that. Yeah.
light schedule.
Yeah.
Missouri's schedule coming into this
Yeah.
game,
Yeah,
pretty
very
light.
light. But to your point, hey, keep winning. Make them make a decision. Let's see what happens, guys. I think you got a better chance at it than anybody ever thought you would coming into this thing.
We'll have more of your thoughts coming up. Now we're number 3 again, broadcasting live out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Tyler, West, and Chris going until noon. Reaction Monday here on the game.
Yeah, Sally done hit me a couple times this year, man. But I'm grateful for it. We get the block executed, you know what I'm saying? Knock a guy down, and hey, we good. But yeah, you gotta sometimes you can try to stay out his way, but Torricelli, he gonna hit somebody. Yeah, I went flying. Did you see me? Shoot.
Gamecock Central Takeover Hour live at Firehouse Sub. We will get back to Wes, Chris, and Tyler here in just a minute. Terry Ford, just walking by, figure I'd say hi. Do we get these guys ready to rock and roll at Firehouse Sub? As we're just reconnecting some buttons. And once we get them connected, we'll get back to them. Obviously, talking about a gigantic win for South Carolina on Saturday over Missouri. We'll be obviously yipping about it all day long here on the game. Like I said, we'll get you back to Firehouse Sub in Newberry momentarily as we were getting that set up and ready to rock and roll. Also, we have you giving us calls on the Love Chevy phone line, Firehouse Sub text line. We have all that going on as well. So please feel free to Reaction Monday to jump in with us and let us know your thoughts and feelings on what was just a phenomenal victory. And obviously, we'll talk a ton about it on the halftime show. And Terry Ford will be there with Terry Ford and Terry Ford since Tyler's coming back from Newberry. We'll be doing that from noon to 3 here on the game. And we are working on getting Wes, Chris, and Tyler back as well. And it's one of those wins. And like I said, we'll really dig into it more on the halftime show. But, it's just one of those wins where winning programs find a way. We talk about this all the time, like the Kansas City Chiefs. The third string gunner on special teams forces a fumble, and all of a sudden the Chiefs just find a way to win. Saturday going in, you're thinking, okay, South Carolina's got one of the best defenses in America. You think about that. And you think about the running game. But it was the passing game and Lenore Sellers that won that contest for South Carolina. Let's jump back to Firehouse Sub with Wes, Chris, and Tyler in Newberry. Take it away, fellas. I've had enough.
We are live, Firehouse Subs in Newberry, and come out and see us if you're in the area. He is Chris Clark. I'm Wes Mitchell. Tyler Head here as well. We just had a great spread from our friends at Firehouse Subs, and we're going to be joined by a couple of guests here coming up the next two segments with Chris as we are. Actually, the show's going incredibly fast because there's so much to get to with this game. And to Terry's point there, I feel like this is a game that if you were trying to make progress as a program, you're trying to take that next step, you do find a way to win this game. And, I think for Carolina, finding a way to win the game, it says a lot about where you are in what is the toughest conference in America and what is a conference that you are going to get your opponent's best shot every single week. And even a game when you are a 2-touchdown underdog, you're going to have to deal with essentially a dogfight every single week.
Yep. Well, and the way that this team has been constructed, you've got some young players like, the most obvious example is Lenora Sellers as a redshirt freshman who's just incredibly talented, right? And as the season has progressed, has made game-changing plays and has eliminated what was holding him back in the early part of the season, namely, taking sacks, the early turnovers, right? Those were the biggest problems. You were seeing glimpses of what he could do from a big play standpoint. Now you're eliminating more of the negative, and you're kind of amplifying and extending the positive. But also on this team, you have a lot of grown men on this team. You've got Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight, Tonka, Boogie, DeAndre Jules, obviously a super freshman in Dylan Stewart, but Debo Williams, Bam Scott. Look at the secondary. You have a lot of experience on this team, and then you take it over to the offensive side of the ball. Rocket Sanders, who's played a lot of college football. The interior of South Carolina's offensive line has Vershawn Lee, who's in year 5. Kamar Bell and Torricelli Simpkins III have played a lot of college football. So I think experience matters. We talk about that in sports all the time. If you can build a team that has that, obviously you got to be talented, and South Carolina is, I think we've seen.
Right.
but not playing young guys. They have some young guys at certain positions, but they built depth and they built talent and they built really experience. And I think that's served them well in a game like the Missouri game where your back's against the wall, you got to make something happen. The moment has not been too big for them.
And that's one thing about Coach Beamer that we know very well. And obviously his teams play the best, towards the end of the season. There's never a give up in these guys. And I go back to a year ago when, they came in off the 0 for October and really had their backs up against the wall, just try and make a bowl game. And they went through and didn't win all their games in November, but we're in a position going into that Clemson game where if they would have won, that would have been the 6th win and gotten them to a bowl game, if nothing else there. And they believed all the way up until the end. You see that with them this year. Yeah, you went on a bit of a rough patch there by losing to the likes of, Ole Miss and Alabama over the course of 3 weeks. They put together 4 straight wins up to this point. Do you know the last time, by the way, that South Carolina won 5 straight games? You know what season that was?
I do not. 2013 would be
2013. They ended on a 6-game winning streak to close out that year, and you certainly have the opportunity to do that. Obviously, you got to get past Wofford this weekend, which would be 5 wins, but you could potentially go into that game next weekend against Clemson with potential to win 6 straight to close out the season and still have an opportunity to win 10 games with the ball in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, guys. Like, it is special what they're doing. And, again, I'll go back to what I said before. You have the added pressure of the context of, hey, you are still alive in this thing, even though your chances are somewhat faint. So I think for South Carolina, it is a situation where in order to take major steps as a program, though, you have to go through moments like that. You have to find a way to win in moments like that. And, again, I like how Jack actually asked it to Beamer on a teleconference. He said, look, your defense maybe didn't have their fastball today, but you found a way to go win the game. And that's what teams do. This defense has picked up the offense a ton this year, especially early in the season. Then you saw really just complementary, balanced football. And then on Saturday, it was the offense stepping up, making plays late, and finding a way to win the game. And, it's just the type of win. If you're going to have a special season, you have to look back on these games, and you have to have it if you're going to have a special year.
Let's get to more of your reactions. Love Chevrolet phone line, 803-404-6100. Dodger Blue's been hanging on for a little bit. Appreciate your time this morning. What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning, guys. Good morning. Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're live. You're live. You're up.
Okay, I'm talking. I'm talking, but I can't. I hear you guys. Oh, do you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead. We got you.
Okay, go ahead. Well, great to be a Gamecock. It's so awesome to see these kids rise to the occasion. But I have a concern, and I don't know if you guys even pay attention to this kind of stuff, but I'm sitting at home watching the game, and it seemed like Missouri knew what plays that we were running the whole time. But I noticed at the end of the game when we used those 2 timeouts and they came to the sideline and they called 2 different plays and they worked really good. I know that Clemson steals signals. I know they do that for real. And I think Missouri was stealing our signals when they were singing in plays because, man, they seemed like they was in place to stop everything that we was doing until, our quarterback moved around and scrambled a little bit and made some plays. But I tell you that, we got a pretty good team down there. I just hope they can keep up the good work and hopefully this team can really get to the top of next year. I'm not done with this year yet, but I believe that, let's take care of Wofford and then let the ship fall where they may with Clemson. But I tell you, this team they about gave me a heart attack 2 or 3 times this year. But I tell you, man, I was sitting there like screaming my house down in here, and but I've had a pretty good year. The Gamecock women, the Dodgers won the World Championship, and the Gamecocks actually have a chance to win 9 games. You can't ask for nothing better than that, guys. I enjoy the show. I listen every morning, so I'm like Gamecock Larry. I just love them Gamecocks.
Yeah, yes, sir. Absolutely. We certainly appreciate your call again, 803-446-100. And we do got to give credit to Missouri because that is a good team. Now, yes, their record against ranked teams was not good coming in. They played a lighter schedule, but they got really good and talented players on both sides of football. Again, Johnny Walker was all over Sellers in that game. Only got the one sack when Sellers fumbled the ball and was able to fall back on it. And, was certainly in his face quite a bit there. So I don't necessarily think it's a case of them stealing signals. I just think they schemed up and game plan for South Carolina really well and had the ability to go out there and make plays, which, again, we didn't expect Carolina to go out there and blow the doors off of them 50-0. You knew they were going to make plays. You knew they were going to hold South Carolina in check in some regards, and they were able to do that, especially in the second half for a lot of the ways, but Carolina made the plays when they needed to end up winning the game.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to the first half, obviously that was South Carolina's, overall their more successful half. I mean, there are times where they kind of went right up and down the field, and there were times where Missouri, got in the backfield and wrecked a few plays or, covered up something well. And certainly in short yardage is about, it's not, there was no kind of disguising what was coming. You're lining up on those fourth and shorts and running the football. I mean, one of them was basically, it was a man-on-man win. Missouri's defensive tackle pushed back a Carolina guard, and that blew the play up, and Rocket had to bounce it outside. I honestly didn't really see any evidence that they necessarily knew what was coming. You might, from certain plays, you might anticipate something. I didn't really see that. Not that Carolina just constantly went up and down the field, like you said, Tyler. Not like they scored a touchdown on, every single drive. But they did punt once. They had one turnover. They had success in this game overall, and Missouri got theirs as well. I think, one thing I thought about just talking through it here, Shane Beamer pointed out after the game that the touchdown play to Simon on the little pop pass, and then the touchdown play that looked like kind of a fake quarterback power that was to throw to Michael Smith in the end zone for the touchdown. Those are both brand new plays.
Yep.
We're not in the playbook, put them in this week specifically for Missouri and ran them. So I think there was some pretty good evidence that South Carolina put together a good game plan and was able to execute for the most part.
We'll talk some rankings coming up next with Kelly Ford of KFordRankings.com. See where he thinks South Carolina should fall in the scheme of how teams are being ranked around the country ahead of tomorrow night's next reveal of the College Football Playoff Top 25. Appreciate everybody checking us out on the Games TV, sponsored by our friends at Shepherd's Glass and powered by Integrated Media. You can also, as always, download the 107.5 Game app, the iTunes Store, or the Google Play Store as well. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs live at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Come see us going up until noon. Tyler, West, and Chris are here on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Going up until noon, come by and see us. We got sandwiches, hanging out, obviously talking about what happened on Saturday between South Carolina and Missouri, with the Gamecocks pulling off another victory, improving to 7-3 on the season with still 2 more games to go in the regular season. Now welcome in on the Love Chevrolet phone lines. Talk some rankings with Kelly Ford from kfordratings.com. Kelly, first of all, appreciate your time this morning. You know, we debate back and forth on South Carolina's chances to potentially make the 12-team playoff, and we'll see where the committee has them coming up tomorrow night. Based on what you've seen, where does South Carolina fall for you?
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And South Carolina is an interesting team. It's a team that really, after the loss against Alabama, a lot of people said are completely out of this thing. And from that moment, I said, well, hang on now. South Carolina, while the chances are not great, they still have a path to get to 9-3. And that path now looks a lot brighter than it did, about a month ago. So I think South Carolina absolutely should still be in this at-large conversation with the CFP. Last week, my most deserving rankings had South Carolina at number 16. I know the committee didn't have quite as much love for the Gamecocks, but based on the resume they had, that's where I would have had them. The win against Missouri this weekend certainly helped improve that. I have not published the most deserving update. I do that on Tuesdays, but I took a quick peek here, and I do have South Carolina at number 14 this week in the most deserving. So I think if South Carolina gets to 9-3, they would have a resume that would be worthy of consideration. Whether the committee agrees or not, I don't know. But South Carolina would be among the strongest resumes, certainly of that 3-loss group, but even better than some 2 or 1-loss teams based on my numbers.
Hey, Kelly, it's Wes. Appreciate you doing this, man. And for anybody out there listening, make sure you check out Kelly's work. Easiest way, maybe on X or Twitter, at kfordratings. And you got links to all of his other work there as well. And go to kfordratings.com, of course. Kelly, can you maybe tell our listeners a little bit about your methodology, what goes into the ratings, and sort of in that same context, what do you or your rating system sort of like about South Carolina that puts them at that number you just gave us?
Yeah, so the power ratings, that's the heart, that's the engine for everything. And so my power rating model is very similar, if you're familiar with others out there, and there are quite a few, but Bill Connolly's SP+, Brian Fremeau, FEI. ESPN has their own proprietary model they call the FPI, right? All of these power rating models, they're looking at essentially the same things. We're trying to identify what are the predictive elements of football, and how can we use the data that we capture every single Saturday to make educated guesses or predictions as to how games are going to go in the future. So that's the power rating model. It serves as the engine for what I call the most deserving rankings, and that is my way to attempt to objectively quantify how much has every single college football team achieved this year relative to what would be expected given the schedule they've played. So we all know that schedule difficulty varies drastically across college football. And what my number suggests, is that, 9-3 against South Carolina's schedule is similar to 11-1 against Indiana's, for example. So it's a way to filter out the noise with the model and then really get to the crux of how did this team do? How did they perform with regard to win-loss record relative to how we would have expected them to perform given the schedule that they faced? And so, your second question there, what does the model like about South Carolina? It's this defense, right? So the defense for me right now is number 11 in the country. They were top 10 going into this past weekend. Got downgraded a little bit for the performance against Missouri, which was still a good performance for the team overall, but the model expected a little bit more, especially on the defensive side. And the offense is number 38, which is the best offense we've seen in Columbia in a few years now. So the model's very impressed. If you look at the last month of the season, South Carolina has been upgraded more than a field goal in the model. That's top 10 nationally. If you look at the course of the whole season, so from preseason to current, the model has upgraded South Carolina during the course of play 9 points this year. That's top 10 nationally. So South Carolina is playing at a really high level, top 15 in my power ratings, top 15 on defense, top 40 on offense. This is a really strong team. Wofford, don't expect to pose any issues, but the game at Clemson, everyone's going to be watching it. Huge rivalry, a lot on the line for both of these teams. My numbers right now make South Carolina a slight underdog, 42% win expectancy against the Tigers, and that really can be boiled down to the home.
Kelly, Chris Clark here. Thanks for taking time to join us. So you mentioned that South Carolina, in running your quick numbers, was, I think you said, number 14 in terms of most deserving. Obviously, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is going to use their own criteria, which seems like it could be a moving target. Let's say South Carolina pulls off that win against Clemson. That would be, like you said, an upset according to your numbers. May be hard to predict right now, but is there some sort of expectation as to what that could do within your model as far as how high they could ultimately shift up into your model? Could they get in, top 11, top 10? What do you think would happen there?
It's certainly possible, but I can't say for certain without other results. So I would need a more specific scenario to then run through the model to say, okay, given these outcomes, where would South Carolina rank? Because we can't just say, oh, South Carolina gets to 9-3, because it matters. What is Ole Miss's record? What's Tennessee's record? What's Texas A&M, right? And that's just in the SEC. There's lots of other teams around them. Now, I would need to know what is their final record here, but certainly a win against Clemson on the road is going to help, because the way that I assign credit in the most deserving rankings, and the way that I believe we collectively as a college football public and selection committee should be assigning credit towards building a resume, is what is the quality of the opponent you've beaten? And how do I define quality? It's their power rating. It's not their record. It's not their top 25 ranking from the committee. It's their power rating, because that, in the essence of how difficult is it to beat a team, that is how we define it. That's how Vegas defines it, and they set the line, and they have big, shiny buildings for a reason. They know what they're doing. That is the way we should, in my opinion, be assigning credit. And Clemson right now is power rated number 13. So if South Carolina goes on the road and wins at a top 15 power rated opponent, that is certainly going to improve their resume. And as I said, already number 14, Wofford's not going to move the needle. So, I mean, South Carolina is not going to earn a lot of credit for beating Wofford. That's going to be expected of any team in this position. But the South Carolina game, that's a chance to move the needle right before we get to conference championship. I absolutely believe other results go South Carolina's way, they can certainly be a top 10, 11, 12 team most of the rankings come Selection Sunday.
Okay, so talking to Kelly Ford of kfordratings.com. Again, you mentioned that your most deserving ratings coming out tomorrow for week number 12. You don't have to spoil the exact number, but BYU was your number one this past week. They obviously fell to a sub-500 Kansas team late on Saturday night. How far can we expect them to fall, and what is the potential new top of this list going to maybe look like?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm on with you guys. I'll give it to you. BYU, and one thing that you said there is something that and I say this out of love, makes me cringe a little bit, because when you said they fell to a sub 500 Kansas team, to me that's not framing it the right way, right? Records with regard to your opponents. I'll ask the question: what's more difficult, beating Kansas, who's sub 500, or beating Liberty, who is, what are they, 8-2 now, right? I mean, like Kansas is a harder opponent, even though their record is sub 500, when there's other opponents out there that wouldn't fall in that sub 500. So we do need to be careful of that, I would say. So for BYU, as I look at it, they lost at home to the team that I have power rated number 31. So yeah, Kansas is sub 500. Guys, they're 1-5 in one possession games. This is their first one possession win all year. Kansas is a much better team than their record indicates, but I have BYU falling to number 6 this week in my most deserving, which, funny enough, is where the committee had them going in. So certainly the committee is going to ding them much more than that. I've got BYU at 6. If we look at the top of my most deserving, people aren't going to want to hear this, but it's what the math suggests. Georgia, with 2 losses, is going to be my number 1 most deserving ranked team tomorrow, ahead of undefeated Oregon, who's going to hold their spot at number 2. Guys, the Georgia schedule has been ridiculous. They only have 2 losses. We would expect the average playoff team to actually have more than that, given the schedule that they have played there with the Bulldogs. So Georgia's going to be number 1 for me. BYU is going to be number 6.
He is Kelly Ford from kfordratings.com. We certainly hope the committee thinks as highly of South Carolina as you do, and maybe they can be in a good position for the college ball playoff here over the course of the next couple of weeks. Appreciate your time, and I'm sure I'll be checking with you down the line again as well.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
In Gamecock Central Takeover, broadcasting live at Firehouse Subs here in Newberry, going for about another 30 minutes. Come by and see us. Going to be talking to SEC Mike coming up next. You know him from Twitter. It's Gamecock Central Takeover Hour rolls along here on Your Reaction Monday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Going up until noon. Come by and see us while we're still out here hanging out. As Reaction Monday rolls along, head out to Love Chevrolet phone lines. Welcome in our guest, Michael Bratton, otherwise known as SEC Mike on Twitter, host of the SEC podcast. Mike, first of all, appreciate your time this morning. I'm looking at your power rankings from this past weekend in the SEC. Carolina currently sitting at number 6. They're able to win these last 2 games against Wofford and Clemson, and everything stays status quo with the rest of the conference. Any chance they can maybe move into that top 5 for you?
Yeah, I mean, it really just matters what happens. I mean, if Texas A&M, they have 2 losable games. So that's certainly one South Carolina could jump. How would maybe Texas? What if Texas gets beat down by A&M? That's another one they could jump. But it's going to be hard to jump number 1, Ole Miss, after we saw those 2 teams face off earlier in the season.
Mike, it's Wes. Appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you've maybe taken a little flack from Gamecock fans this week for having A&M above South Carolina, but I'll take up for you. You have had a lot of positive things to say about South Carolina, and particularly the job Shane Beamer has done this year. So as someone who has the perspective of, following and covering the entire SEC, can you give us kind of that non-localized, a little bit more outside perspective on A, how you just think this team has improved overall, and B, the job that Shane Beamer has done with this group?
Yeah, I'm glad you point out all these fans are mad at me, and not a single one of them. Not a single one. There's right now I'm looking at it. There's 276 comments. Not a single one of these Gamecocks say, well, hey, we're over Alabama. Alabama beat. Not a single one have pointed that out. But, again, I'm glad you referenced that. But to the job, yeah, South Carolina's been doing. I mean, they are clearly one of the hottest, if not the hottest. I mean, I guess Ole Miss, you got to throw them in that conversation. But two of the hottest teams in the country. And I've been saying for a couple of weeks that if South Carolina keeps winning and winning in impressive fashion, it's very unlikely that they're going to go to the college football playoff just because they have that 3rd loss, which I would even say they shouldn't even have, because I think they got robbed against LSU. And if the committee is going to leave out a team like Florida State because they didn't have their quarterback, I don't know why they can't turn around and say, well, South Carolina didn't have their quarterback in the second half of a game that they got cheated out of. So if I'm the committee, I'd say they only have 2 losses. But apparently it only works when you want to kick Florida State out, which I actually had no problem with. But to your question, yeah, I mean, they're doing a hell of a job there in Columbia. And, again, aside from Ole Miss, I don't think there's a team you do not want to face more in the SEC than South Carolina.
Well, to your point, Wes, and Mike, this is Chris. Appreciate you being on with us, by the way. I think you've now endeared yourself to Gamecock Nation by pointing out correctly that they're robbed out of that LSU game. But along the same lines of the college football playoff, there is maybe not a great chance, but a chance for South Carolina, assuming, of course, that they win out. So in order to do that, Mike, they would obviously have to jump, at least one, SEC colleague who has 2 losses. What teams generally in your mind are most on the line if they do finish the season with 2 losses, 2 SEC losses? Who's kind of in your mind on the cut line for the college football playoff out of the conference?
Well, it may surprise you because they're currently ranked the highest for some reason out of all the SEC teams. But for me, it's Texas. And I'm not trying to be totally disrespectful to them, but, I mean, their best win is Vanderbilt and maybe Arkansas. I mean, those are their marquee wins right now. So if Texas were to lose to A&M, they'd be sitting there at 10-2, and they would not have a top 25 win. I don't know why they're locked in the way they seem to be. So that's certainly one that I think I would rather have South Carolina, even with the 3 losses, than a 10-2 Texas that if they lose to A&M would have not a single top 25 win. That one stands out. Maybe Tennessee. Tennessee, I don't think is going to make the playoff either, unless they're really going to need an upset or 2 to get that done. But they don't really have many impressive wins outside of Alabama. So probably Texas and Tennessee are 2 I'm really rooting hard against if I'm a South Carolina fan.
Again, talking to Michael Bratton, host of the SEC podcast known as SEC Mike on Twitter. It's interesting you bring up that point against Tennessee because kind of looking at bowl projections and stuff throughout the week, and that's the sentiment a lot of people have is that Tennessee is going to be on that team on the outside looking in, even if they go 10-2, because they do have that win against Alabama, but not a whole lot to hang their hat on. Besides that, is it going to take a lot of chaos elsewhere to maybe kind of bump them in to getting into the college ball playoff these next couple of weeks?
Well, it may not be a lot of chaos. It may just be Ole Miss losing. If Ole Miss loses this weekend at Florida, I think Tennessee's in. So I mean that's just one example. Notre Dame losing, they have to play undefeated Army, I believe, and then Southern Cal at Southern Cal. If Notre Dame loses either one of those, I think Tennessee's in. So it's not going to take a lot, but it's just going to take an upset. And this has been a wild season. Does that start to slow down a little bit? I don't know. I'm a Tennessee graduate, so get Tennessee in there, get as many SEC teams in there. I want South Carolina in there too. So, give me 7 SEC teams. That'd be good for business. But I mean, realistically, I just don't. I don't know if more than 4 is going to make it. It'll be 5 at most. But the SEC is really going to need some upsets here.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be good for business here, Gamecock Central 107.5 as well. If the Gamecocks could sneak into this thing, Mike, and you kind of answered my question before I could ask. I was going to ask kind of what's the maximum number of teams that could absolutely get in. But let's go even more big picture. Is there a particular just chaos theory that you have come across in terms of the possibilities for this thing, big picture, that you love the most or that you think would just make for the wildest finish to the year? I mean, I think it's always interesting. You go back to BCS era, the pressure, if you're a team that you have to win and you're in, the pressure just really starts to mount down the stretch over the years. Now that gets expanded out to obviously more teams that are in that same situation. Man, I wouldn't be shocked if this season didn't have a few more big upsets for us down the stretch, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll give you a perfect one. And this is going to make so many people mad, and no one's going to like this. But this is not only is this realistic. If it plays out this way, I guarantee it's going to happen. Let's say A&M beats Texas, and that game's at Texas A&M. I don't think that's a stretch. I think Texas will be favored, but not maybe by a touchdown at most. If Texas A&M beats Texas, A&M's going to the SEC championship. They're likely going to face Alabama. And then if A&M loses in the SEC championship, A&M is out of the playoff and Texas is in the playoff. So I think stuff like that is going to happen. And how can you rightly turn around and say, wait, they just beat Texas and they're out and Texas is in? But that's going to happen because they're not going to have a team that lost a third game in their last game. They're not going to have them in the playoff. They're going to put the other team 10-2 over a 3-loss.
Mike, it's been a chaotic year, not only in the SEC, but in college football. And I know you've been covering this for a long time. I know the season's not over yet, but where in terms of chaos is this year ranked for you and what you've seen so far?
I think it's at the highest it's ever been. I mean, 2007 was pretty wild. I think South Florida got up to number 2 that year. LSU won the national championship with 2 losses, and that was before the playoff era, obviously. So that year always stands out. But this year is unlike any other, where we have 5-6 teams that think they deserve to be not only in the playoff but the SEC championship. No divisions, NIL, transfer portal. I think a lot of people feared that was going to make it to where Georgia and Alabama just were more dominant. I think it's hurt them, and I think it's helped some of the lower tier teams, or at least traditionally lower tier, like an Ole Miss, like even a Missouri, like where's South Carolina without some of their portal additions, like Rocket Centers and Kennard? I mean, they're just not the same team. So I think it's been a great thing for the sport.
He is SEC Mike. You can follow him on Twitter at Michael W. Bratton, as we've all been very entertained by what's going on this year in the SEC, and I appreciate your insight, Mike.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, guys.
Again, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. We're live at Firehouse Subs in Newberry, going for a few more minutes. Come by and see us. We'll wrap up today's edition of the show, get to more highlights, as well as some more of your thoughts as Reaction Monday rolls along here on the game. Yep.
Yeah, I started with Ben. Nah, yeah, for sure. The Rocky Man thing, for sure that. But no, I didn't even feel that. I ain't gonna lie. I was in that mode. I was in that mode. So like I just told him, I was planning to score that, and that's what I did. So like I was in that mode, and like I didn't even feel tree. I didn't even feel tree at all.
Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you for a few more minutes, wrapping up today's edition show out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry. Appreciate our guy Larry Chandler, as always, for allowing us to be out here. The staff as well for accommodating us. It's always a good time at all the Firehouse, and certainly enjoy our time up here in Newberry. That was Rocket Sanders talking about that final touchdown to help South Carolina with the 34-30 victory over Missouri, and obviously an electric environment on Saturday that culminated with the entire place exploding once he crossed that goal line, helping South Carolina get that win. And again, we've had a lot of people weighing in saying this is one of the greatest games they've ever seen, greatest moments they've ever been a part of. Do we have a name for this? Should we name this game, that moment? Is this something we're going to be remembered for a long time as a specific named game?
I can't come up with a name for the game. It might be that play might be begin quote the shovel pass end quote possibly,
Or the shuffle pass,
Maybe.
or the shuffle pass, depending
depending on how technical we want to get.
Yeah, I don't have a name for the game.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like we need to crowdsource this.
Yeah, name for this game and or the Rocket Sanders touchdown. 803-404-6100. You guys, again, have covered a lot of South Carolina football over the years, seen some of the great teams, the Spurrier teams are winning, double-digit games. Where does this game individually rank for you, not only from a program standpoint, but both you guys being in attendance from a viewership fan standpoint, being there in the crowd?
I can't rank it at this point. It's definitely up there. I don't want to be, because there was talk, hey, was this the loudest moment in Williams-Brice Stadium history? It was up there. I still think the Ace Sanders punt return in 2012 was the loudest moment I've ever heard in that stadium. This one, again, was definitely up there. I was at the game in 2001 when Spurrier brought his Florida team in here, and South Carolina was playing to – I don't think they actually would have won the East, but at the time they were playing to potentially win the East because I think Tennessee upset Florida that year. But anyway, South Carolina scored first. That was also one of the loudest moments I've ever heard Williams-Brice Stadium. So this one definitely up there. I've seen some great games. I've seen some great the bowl games during Spurrier's 11-2 run.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great back and forth games in there too. The Gator Bowl, even though Carolina didn't win it last year or 2 years ago,
that was great.
That was a great football game. So we've seen some good ones. I was at the Connor Shaw, Missouri, when Carolina came from behind at Missouri. I've always said that might have been one of the best games I've ever been at.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I think there's a few different conversations going on at once. You've got kind of the great game conversation that you were just going over, Wes. A lot of people are talking about, top 5 or top 10 biggest, right, crowd pops. So just individual, like everybody, but most Gamecock fans I know think, the Ace Sanders 2012 punt return against Georgia. I saw somebody bring up one of Brad Edwards' interceptions against Clemson in the 80s as being one of the biggest crowd pops. There are several. And I also think, thirdly, you have just the way the game ended, right? So scoring a touchdown in the final minute. And so I saw this on Twitter, Rickson Lane, the Saturday night final minute touchdown for South Carolina, the third time, according to him, in the last 30 years, that Gamecock football scored a game-winning touchdown in the final 1 minute of regulation. So the other ones are Dylan Thompson, Bruce Ellington in the Outback Bowl. We all remember that one. Zeb Nolan to Xavier Leggett against Vandy in 2021 was another one. And then the shuffle pass to Rocket Sanders being the other one. So, some thrilling ones, right? But and I think with this South Carolina one, just the way that it happened, you'd just given up the 4th and 5, kind of seemed like a backbreaker. But, hey, you got a minute on the clock. Let's see what happens. And then you go down and score like you did.
So got a couple of the name suggestions rolling in here. Got La Magic, Mayor's Cup Mayhem, the Rocket Rumble, just call it the shuttle pass. Specs Rex, launch one rocket. Some good name suggestions there. I don't know if any of those stick, but definitely seems like a game that that might deserve a nickname to it at some point.
Here's the thing about a game and naming it. When you hear it, you'll know it.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've heard it yet. So, by the way, guys, I've been doing some research while we were on air. I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Chris Jackson. Great follow on Twitter/X. And he is the person who originally posted the photo of the reaction to the supposed earthquake when Rocket scored. And I said, look, dude, we're ignorant on this stuff. What exactly did we see there?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that Raspberry Shake station, I don't know what that part means, is not managed by the USGS, but he's sure they have access to it. He said he's not qualified to say what kind of magnitude that station picked up precisely, but that the camera shake on the broadcast feed was something you don't see every day. He knew there was a seismometer close to Willie B, so he went over and took a look. Sure enough, there was a big spike within a minute or two of that touchdown. He said he doesn't know what type of latency those stations would have, but it would take a minute for any type of seismic wave to propagate across the ground. So
there's your earth science lesson for the day.
That and Chris Jackson, again, great follow on there. He had the original picture. He's at Chris Jackson SC for people who were swiping his photo and posting it all over. But that was a more official answer there because I'm ignorant to all that stuff.
Had the word latency
which again is why I didn't want to just blindly believe it, because anything can
but he's
pop
a
up
meteorologist.
on Twitter.
So
he is okay.
He's really good.
It's not just Jimmy posting a photo.
Great Reaction Monday as always. Appreciate again Larry Chandler and everyone here out at Firehouse Subs in Newberry for allowing us to hang out. Halftime show with myself, Terry Ford, coming up next as Reaction Monday rolls along here on The Game.
Man, I had actually never tried the hook and ladder until today.
Wow. Confession Monday.
Yes, Confession Monday. I had one, and I got to say, officially, Chris,